So it has a brew. I have it in a new Sports Direct mug. It is got the German flag on it because, well, my old Sports Direct mug kind of broke. I kind of dropped it and it kind of then smashed into a million pieces. And so I bought a job lot of Sports Direct mugs. I bought 7 in total. One of them included a Surrender Monkey French one, a German one, and then a load of other just general Sports Direct ones. The reason for that was because they were stupidly cheap. They're only £1 to go. In actual fact, these are like 42p at the moment. So I bought a load of them while I can, and then when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a big giveaway of loads of stuff, including things like a nudie t-shirt and loads of stuff, some indie t-shirts to give away, and just general awesomeness that needs to be given away, because I want to give something back to you lot, because 1,000 subs is, you know, quite a bit. You know, if all 1,000 people all rocked up at once, that's a lot of people to cater for. So I'm going to try and do that, and yes, it will be international, and I'll tell you the limitations and stuff like that, but we'll have to wait until I get to 1,000 subs. So of course, if you want to get that prize going sooner, share it with your friends and everything like that. First things first, before getting into any actual news, I have to apologise about me not doing any brew times, because basically I've been stuck in Cornwall for ages and ages and ages because the trains have not been running properly, and I haven't been able to get back up to Plymouth. And I was gonna try and like handheld record things and have shitty audio, and I was like, yeah, but really, I don't think you guys would really like that. I think you'd much rather there'll be decent audio, decent camera quality, decent lighting, and then for and for it not to be echoey and stuff like that. So I laid off last weekend. I was actually in Plymouth, but I was ill. I had man flu or something. I felt horrendous. And truth be told, I just really could not be bothered to do it. So I didn't do it. So I do apologise, but hopefully it'll be reasonably regular next week. And I can't do it because I'm back down in Cornwall again for my sister's birthday, and we're going out on the, well, not on the piss, we're going out for a meal and stuff. So I won't be here then. So it's a bit of a pain in the backside. I'm just waiting for work to get themselves sorted so I can actually know whether or not I've got a permanent contract and where the hell I am. Because once I've got a permanent contract, or once I know what's going on with work, I'll either then locate myself permanently in Truro or locate myself permanently in Plymouth, and I'll get my own place, and it'll be much, much better. And yeah, I don't have to then share a house, and it'll be so, so much better. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about me and my personal shit. So let's go into some actual news. The big bit of news that that happened, which actually is kind of quite lucky, because when I was looking for news, I was like, oh no, I don't know what even to talk about. Facebook buys WhatsApp for $19 billion. Now, one thing that kind of annoys me about the media at the moment is they're all speculating on things, and they really don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. Especially like Rory Ketland-Jones. I cannot stand him. He just does my head in because he doesn't know what he's really talking about. He doesn't really understand much of the technology, and he tries to kind of explain it to lay people, and it's just like, Rory, what the hell are you doing? You're an old biddy. You really don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I just don't think he's a good journalist, especially not a tech journalist anyway. He talks really weirdly, and he's just a bit of an arse, really. But yeah, basically there's been loads of news outlets just kind of speculating as to what Facebook are really doing and why they're even buying WhatsApp, to be honest, because they've got their own messaging application. So it was $19 billion they paid for it. It's about 11, that's US dollars, so which is about 11 billion UK pounds. And we don't really know why they've done that. There's lots of speculation going around at the moment. Obviously, as part of that, they'll acquire the developers, they'll acquire the patents, so they'll acquire the infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, and the users, and everything else that goes with it. Which is obviously good. But does Facebook really need to worry about it? Probably not. Did they really need to buy them out? Probably not. Facebook got some amazing engineers. They've got some fantastic stuff there, and it really is, they've really got the best of the best. They don't really need WhatsApp. I think really the reason why Facebook bought WhatsApp is because WhatsApp is probably the most popular after Facebook Messenger for messaging. And so, to make sure that Facebook is the top of messaging, they've bought WhatsApp to ensure that it's all the messaging, the top two messaging platforms, the messaging platforms are Facebook. That's just my own opinion. I might be wrong, but again, it's all speculation. Because I can't read what Mark Zuckerberg's thinking, and we probably would never find out because it's all going to be hidden and behind the scenes, especially as the deal goes through and stuff like that. Now, there's quite an interesting article on the Register, which you can check out in the link description below. I'll put loads of links to articles about everything I'm going to talk about today. And basically, they are saying, really, that Facebook are wanting the contact information. They're paying for this big database of all your contact information, all your phone books, all that kind of stuff, because that's one thing that Facebook has never been able to manage to do, is to get things like mobile phone numbers. Because if people are just primarily using the desktop app, they're not going to input their phone numbers, then you're not going to get it automatically. Well, they sneak through some sort of weird and wonderful update through Android and iOS, and they wanted to just grab your telephone number kind of illegally without your permission. And I think the EU courts kind of told them off and said, what are you doing? You can't do that without asking people. So they then changed the app, and it does ask you whether or not you want to share your phone number with Facebook, to which I've obviously disagreed with, and I don't share my phone number with Facebook because it causes all sorts of problems. And so I think that's kind of what they want to do. I think they've, because WhatsApp's got a huge database of phone books and all sorts of stuff, with mobile phone numbers. It's because because of that. That's probably what they're buying. It's about $45 per person. They've kind of paid for it. So in terms of the 450 million users that are using it, it's well, one of the things that the Register did say, it would get access to 450 million address books. So that's address books. That's not numbers. That's address books. So you times that by however many people are going to be in your address book. That's a lot. Will I carry on using WhatsApp? Probably. I'll very carefully monitor what they're going to do with the terms of service, and if they roll it into Facebook properly. If they do, I will probably move away from WhatsApp and go to something like Kik or BBM. People slate BBM, but actually BBM is really, really good. It's encrypted, which is great, and it just does work. And now it's on every single platform. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that annoys me is things like the BBM pin is not easy to remember, and it's a pain in the backside to get people on there. So if someone puts their BBM pin in a picture or something, you can't grab it if it's on your phone, and it's just a real pain. I think really they need to get around that. It would be much easier if they had like a BBM link, so you could put a link out, and then as you click on it, it then automatically launches the BBM app, and that would be much better. But yeah, I'm going to still use WhatsApp, because I use WhatsApp quite a bit, because I like WhatsApp. It's really good, it's really clean, and I just like it. It works really well, and that's pretty much what everybody else uses. I'm not really going to move away from it unless something major happens, but to be honest, unless they really do roll into the Facebook ecosystem and they then start aggregating data, which is obviously what they're going to do. Going to have mass statistical aggregation if they start rolling it into the Facebook kind of ethos, because obviously you're going to have things like it's going to be able to promote ads. I mean, I don't think they're going to have ads in there, because I think I think Facebook will be really stupid to do that, because as they fannied around with Instagram, WhatsApp, the founding members never wanted it to have ads. Hopefully it doesn't get ads. I mean, you do have to pay for it. It's 69p a year. It's worth paying for, don't get me wrong. I pay for it. It's worth every penny. But I hope they don't then sort of supplement it with ads and just say, oh, it's free, because that's kind of I don't really like that. I don't really like ads, because get in the way, and cookies and all other stuff, and I just don't like it. I mean, the other thing, I suppose, the other reason that maybe Facebook might get it is because Mark Zuckerberg is loaded and he's got money to burn, and so why the hell not buy WhatsApp? Because he fucking can, because he's loaded, he's got billions to play around with. Why the hell not? It's interesting. It'll obviously, a lot of people are going to now not be with WhatsApp because it's now with Facebook. Loads of people are just saying to either not using Facebook or just moving away from it because of the amount of privacy violations. They kind of they don't do it like publicly. They do it kind of privately and sneakily. I mean, it's not to say that Google don't do it. Google do it as well. But the thing, I don't mind so much Google doing it, because Google are a little bit better. I like the CEOs and stuff, and I kind of like the ethos of Google as it stands. So I still do use Google services. I use Gmail, I use all this other stuff. I use Chrome, I use Android, and that doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'd much rather have Google have my data than Apple or Facebook. Twitter, maybe. I don't mind Twitter having it, because they're not too bad for giving shit to the NSA and all these other big security agencies and stuff. So the other it kind of leads into the whole WhatsApp and Facebook thing is Dropbox are updating their terms of service, privacy policy, and Dropbox for business agreements. make sure you look at this. If you use Dropbox, it matters, and I will explain why it matters in a minute. I'll explain what they're changing and why it matters to you and everything else. So, from March 24th, 2014, two things will be, well, two key things you really need to worry about are going to come in. So, the terms of service is being changed and the privacy policy is being changed. Basically, the one thing they're changing is it's going to be less legal speak and it's going to be more layperson friendly, so it's going to be more for the average users that don't know much about legal terminology. They're going to simplify the terms of service so it's a lot easier to understand, which is good because that's great for us. But one of the bad things they're doing is they're bringing in arbitration. Now, for those of you that don't know what arbitration is where somebody like Dropbox and somebody like, I don't know, let's for instance say the NSA. And what happens without arbitration is the NSA will go to Dropbox and say, can we have so-and-so data? Dropbox will turn around and say, no you can't. The NSA will then go to the courts and it'll take ages and ages and ages and lots of money, and eventually the person with the most money pretty much wins. This is the case in the US anyway. So for instance, if I've got some, I don't know, Al Jihad something on a hard drive or on Dropbox, or child pornography or anything like that, illegal content, and the FBI or the NSA or GCHQ or the police, whoever, thinks that I've got that data, they can apply to Dropbox and say, can we have this data? Dropbox will likely turn around and say, no, you need a warrant, or something like that. It'll go into a court, and all this kind of process takes ages, and it's in America it costs a lot of money, and there's all sorts of weird, wonderful wranglings with it. And what arbitration does is it brings in a third party to basically say to the two parties, yes or no, to whether or not you can have access to that data. So, for instance, the NSA comes to Dropbox and says, I want access to this data, and Dropbox turns around and says, no or yes, and then it will then go to their arbitrators, who are a third party, who will decide and make decisions as to whether or not they can have access to it. Now, this in itself sounds really good, and it kind of is. The whole point of it is to get rid of the courts and ignore that, and so that it's a lot speedier for law enforcement and other private individuals to get access to data and all that other kind of stuff. And it is a good idea. The bad thing is that it also means that it's not so much policed. It doesn't go through the courts. It's not a democratic way of doing things, because you've got one person that decides yes or no, and that arbitration company can be working for, in a kind of roundabout way, and being paid by the likes of Dropbox. So, for instance, if Dropbox had ulterior motives, so like Monsanto, for instance, Monsanto is a great example, as they have arbitration, and that's great. So, Monsanto, for instance, will pay some money, or lots of money usually, to an arbitrating company, or will own an arbitrating company in some kind of way that doesn't look like they own it. So they'll own it via some weird office, via something else. They'll kind of hide the payments and all this other stuff. And they'll have this arbitration company that they use, which we all think is a third party and is nothing and not affiliated with Monsanto in any way, shape or form. But let's say Monsanto didn't like a person, which they don't really like very many people, and they wanted to get a lot of money out of these people, and they wanted to bully somebody. So they go to their arbitration company and say, we want to bully this person. The arbitration company says, oh yes, that's fine, and you can do and bully that person, and that's kind of, and because they pay them a lot of money, they can kind of do that, and they bypass the courts and everything like that. But the thing is, you have to sign up to arbitration. You can't just be opted into it, or, well, you can, but you can't just... they can't just bring in arbitration and say, well, without any agreement. So when you sign up to things in terms of services, it will have an arbitration clause. It will tell you whether or not there's arbitration there. And what Dropbox are doing is they're going to change things. So they're going to bring in arbitration, and you have until March 24th to opt out. You can opt out, and it is a legal requirement that you must opt out before the terms of service change. Obviously, after the fact, when you sign up as a new user after March 24th, or if you completely ignore the terms of service after March 24th, you cannot opt out. So you then will be bound by arbitration law, and that's that. Should you really bother with it? Probably not. The average person, it doesn't really matter. If you're really, really privacy conscious, or if, for instance, you use Dropbox to illegally store stuff on there, which is probably a bad idea anyway, but if you do, then yes, you should opt out of arbitration. I've opted out of it simply for the fact that I don't agree with it, I don't like it. Some people agree with it, and that's fine, and we live in a democratic society, and, you know, you're perfectly happy to use, you know, do that. I've opted out of it, mainly for the fact that Dropbox is hosted in the US as opposed to the UK. If it was hosted in the UK, I mean, it still has to go through UK courts anyway. Well, it kind of doesn't, it doesn't. The data obviously is stored in the US, and therefore comes under US jurisdiction. Me, as a UK citizen, I come under UK jurisdiction, so my data is not protected by UK law. But however, me as a person are. So, if for instance I stored child pornography on something, the US could get a warrant and search my data and find child pornography, but they couldn't arrest me for it. They have to apply to the UK government to either extradite me, or the UK police would probably prosecute me themselves. Not that I do have child pornography, although whether I wouldn't tell you if I did. It's kind of pointless, but you kind of get the idea. You can opt out. I've put a link in the description below where you can opt out of arbitration for Dropbox. You don't really need to worry about it. Permissions, again, there's one other thing they're changing. They're changing the wording of permissions, because a lot of people didn't understand what permissions you were giving to Dropbox, and that's all kind of covered there. And it's basically because things like document previews, Dropbox to be able to provide you with document previews, Dropbox needs to be able to trawl your documents and find what's in the content of the documents to be able to give you a preview of it. And so they're going to kind of define that a bit better as to what Dropbox actually does with it. I think this really doesn't matter if you are a business, because obviously you are paying a lot of money and there's a potential for espionage and all sorts of stuff to happen there. And so it's worth looking at maybe hosting it yourself. There's lots of merits to cloud services. Privacy certainly isn't one of them, because you're relying on a third-party company to host the data, and they may or may not then give it to the NSA. You haven't got it in-house, everything like that. One thing that I did hear about recently, well, actually today, I was speaking to a colleague of mine who's using OwnCloud, which I will now be deploying. I think next month I will buy a server, pump it full of hard drives, and have maybe RAID or ZFS running, and then OwnCloud, and basically that's like a Dropbox solution where you own the server, and so you have a server in your house that is your main servers, and all your devices sync to it, and it's a great idea and it's fantastic, and it means you own the data, and it's not, you know, the NSA has to physically break your door down to get access to it. It also means you can do multiple, so you can have like data in multiple places. So for instance, I can have a server here, I can have a server at my parents' place, and if my server here breaks, I've got a main server in my parents' place I can fail over to, and it's all great. And it's actually probably a really good idea for things like for businesses. Perhaps not so much corporate businesses, more small to medium businesses, more to do with like if you've got your own, you know, if you're like an own self-employed kind of business sort of thing. So one thing that's really, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but one thing that I think you need to check out is there was a hack event that that happened a couple of weeks ago now, to look at the flooding in the UK and how hackers could get together and use their skills to create some really cool stuff. I'll put the article down below, but basically there was some guys from Microsoft and Facebook and loads of places, and a load of like private hackers as well. Google were there, and loads of people, and they created some really, really cool apps. There was kind of a little bit of an unofficial competition, and there wasn't really a proper prize. There's a website which I'll put all the links in the description below. One of the cool things was there was like an SMS alert system when flooding looks like it's going to occur. So depending upon what mast you're connected to, which is really cool. There was loads of really, really cool stuff that came out of it. But one of the things that did come out of it was that they wanted more government data, that's UK government data, to be readily available. And which is what should happen if a government organisation, something like the Environment Agency, for instance, or the Met Office, or anybody like that, should provide the data they collect for free for the public, to use everywhere, to do whatever the hell they wanted with it. But the trouble is they don't currently do that. They basically, because there's lots of weird and wonderful licensing stuff that goes around it. Because as obviously a member of the public, you want to be able to access that data and do whatever the hell you want with it. But the trouble is, if you make it freely available, that also then means businesses can illegally use it because they can do it without an official license. Obviously, if you're a business, you have to have a license to use the data because you're using it for commercial purposes, and it's been collected by using public funds. So therefore, you've got to apply for a license. But obviously, if it's in the public domain, someone's got to then police who has licenses and things like that. So that's one thing. The other thing is, because we've got so many quangos and because they like to hold on to things and they like it and they want to own it, they don't like members of the public just having it because they don't know what they're going to do with it, and they don't like that, and because they like control. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the Environment Agency are really keen to have data freely available for everybody, and they're trying slowly moving that forward, which is really good. And I'd like to see, say, every government department that collects data on people, anonymise it. Obviously, if it's collected for, on actual people as opposed to, flood levels or weather data or whatever. But all that stuff should be freely available for the likes of you, me, Dupree, everybody. At least in the UK. I mean, maybe you have a bit of a country block so that only people within the UK or that have UK IP addresses can access the content, which is fair enough. But yeah, that's kind of that's quite kind of an interesting thing that happened. I haven't had anything to eat and I'm fucking starving. What time is it? It's like 5 to 8 on a Friday evening, and I'm so hungry. Good Guy Facebook have allowed users to customise their gender. So before, you only really had male and female, really. You might have had transgender, I don't know. But basically now you can change who you are. So you can be transgender, you can be transgender woman, transgender man. And it also allows you to change what Facebook calls you, whether or not it calls you a her or a him. So when it comes up with so-and-so's birthday, it's his birthday today. You can change all that, and it's a really good idea, equality for the win. That's a really cool thing. I'll put the link in the description below because I'm not going to go into it too much because I'm not that interested that much. But it's really cool, great for equality, and that's all fantastic. We love that. So linking to free web content is legal, says the EU court. Now, this is an article from the BBC, and I'm sort of laughing a little. Well, I laughed a little bit when I actually saw it. I was like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Of course free web content, linking to it is legal. What are you talking about? You're just linking to it. So basically, a Swedish newspaper called Göteborgs Posten, I think that's how you pronounce it, I don't know, wanted compensation from Retriever Thirge, I think, for linking to its articles. Basically, Retriever Thirge, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that website is a content aggregation website for news articles and all that other stuff. Kind of a bit like Flipboard, but like a website kind of thing, and it's a little bit more it doesn't look at the specific websites. It kind of like grabs it all together. It's a bit weird. Look at the actual website; it's quite cool, but. And the newspaper argued that they didn't know where people were coming from, and somehow this violated their copyright rights. Fuck knows how, I don't know. They're Swedish, who knows? There's no insult to the Swedish, but I don't know. They're just very bizarre. And so basically, an EU court, it doesn't specifically say which EU court, but an EU court has ruled that all freely available content can be linked to without attribution, at least within the EU and obviously international EU as well. So, for instance, if I link to a BBC News article that I talk about here or on my website, I could do that. I don't have to attribute it. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I don't have to ask permission from the BBC either to do that, or any other private company. The only thing they did specifically say, though, is linking to content that bypasses a paywall would be violating it. So, for instance, the Times, you can't get access to everything. But, for instance, if I was a subscriber and somehow the way they do their paywall is that you have a paywall, and then once you're over the paywall, the link is slightly different for those that subscribe. So that then I can send like my subscribed link to somebody, and everybody could see it because it kind of bypasses the paywall. I don't know if that even makes sense, but if it bypasses a paywall, then that would be in violation of copyright. So if I link to something that kind of bypasses a paywall, and it means you then don't have, you're kind of bypassing the money you have to pay to get access to the content, that would be illegal. So that's kind of quite interesting. You know, it's kind of a little bit ludicrous that even went to court, but hey, what do I know? So the last thing to end on, which I think is really good, is Cornish pasty aid for victims of the Somerset floods. So basically, some woman that lives in Somerset that used to live in Cornwall wrote to a load of companies like the Rose and Oggies and all these other Cornish pasty companies to ask for pasties. They sent up truckloads of pasties, they froze them all, and then she distributed them around to her friends, who then all cooked them up and then distributed around the community to flooded homes that couldn't get out of their homes and couldn't go to the shops and couldn't cook stuff, which is really good. It's fantastic. There's been some really, really great stories of community getting together, and it's been really, really cool. And obviously, there's big sways of people that have been disjointed by the floods. Next week, say I won't be doing a brew time. I'm also going to have to put on hold loads of things I was going to plan on doing. Things like the IP fire stuff is now not happening. It's not going to happen until I find out what's going on with my job. So hopefully the IP fire guys are happy for me to keep hold of that test unit. If not, I'll send it back. That's not a problem. But I'd really love to do some more videos on it, but it's having the time, and it's actually being in Plymouth is the real problem, because I can't do it in my parents' place because there's nowhere in the house that I can do it. It's too noisy, it's too echoey, the lighting's shit, and yeah, I just need to wait for me to get my own place and I'll be fucking sorted then. But there you go. That's just the struggles of living, being 22 and having 4 years IT experience, and having 4 years IT experience and knowing a lot more than those that have been doing it for 25 years. That sounds like my ego is like stupidly huge. But seriously, when you've worked in IT for a short period of time, you've done lots of stuff, and you really do know your shit. Like I'm not saying that I know everything, but I do know what I'm talking about most of the time. And you get these people that have been in IT for 25 years, and they're just telling you a load of bullshit. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you can't get a fucking permanent job because all these people have been sleeping with everybody else, and they're going to get the job because they know the right people, as opposed to those that should get the job because they actually have the skills. But that's the way it is when you actually, when you're like, you 16-year-olds now have no idea. Like, when you get a job, you have no idea. When you get a proper job, and like a proper job, not like a McDonald's job, working in retail, not like a proper, a skilled job. That sounds really like horrible, but a proper skilled job, a trained job, you'll realise that it isn't what you know, it's who you know, it's who you sleep with, who your wife knows, who your boyfriend knows, who your father knows. It's nothing about what you know. Obviously, you've got to know a little bit, but it's certainly not. It's not what you know that gets you the job. Certainly, definitely not. There you go. One last thing, actually, before I do go, I'm now rambling on, is I found out that my place of work, which I'm not going to tell you who it is. If you don't put me personally, you know where I work. If you don't know me personally, I'm not going to tell you where I work because I will get in trouble. But my place of work, I found out that their VPN is running on PPTP, and which is very, very bad. PPTP is pretty much pointless as a VPN because it's pretty much unencrypted. It is encrypted, but it's 128-bit encryption. It's a piece of piss to crack, and yeah, I don't really know why they're using it. So yeah, hopefully they will upgrade to IPsec and L2TP or OpenVPN. And if you're not using either of those technologies, I will come round to your place and I will shoot you in the face, because if you're running PPTP, either don't like if you could, the only reason to run PPTP, apart from the fact, well, unless you're a fucking idiot, is compatibility, maybe, or if you don't really care about security, so you only literally want to tunnel into your network and you don't really care. There's the only two times where using PPTP VPNs are perfectly acceptable. You should be using L2TP, you should be using IPsec, and if you're not, I will come around to your place and I will fuck you up, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just horrendous. Should never be used and should be phased out as a technology and should never be supported by anything. Wow, then what a rant that was. Yes, so there's not going to be any brew time next week. Hit me up on Twitter at AzzyChill. Send me an email, azzychill@gmail.com. If you've got any indie brands that you know of that you think I should check out, send me an email and I shall have a look and I shall see what I think, and they will be aggregated in the big prize draw that will happen when I hit 1,000 subscribers. Currently at the moment I'm looking at Swifted Co. You need to check their shit out. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Check out Nudie stuff because they make some really, really sweet stuff as well. Check out ATW Clothing because they make some really, really sweet stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to try and collate a load of stuff and then give it away to one big person. Hopefully, it'll be good to get some of the indie brands to actually give me stuff so I can then just give it away. But they're a little bit reluctant to do that, mainly because I'm a nobody. I'm not, you know, if I had like 10,000 subscribers, then yes, they might do. But because I'm only a nobody, they don't generally do that. Let me know if there's any content you want creating, because although I don't have much time to do it, I will try and fit it in as and when I can. And, you know, if there's anything really major you want me to do, someone's asked me to do a FreeNAS video, I will do that. Someone's asked me to do some Windows Server 2012 videos. I will try and do that at some point. So Active Directory and all that stuff I will try and cover. Obviously, you want me to do IP5 videos? Yes, I'll try and do that. Untangle videos? Yes, I'll try and do that. And yes, I think that's pretty much it. There was a nasty comment I was going to mention, but I'm not even going to give him the light of day. Something about he reckons that I should go and get a girlfriend, which is very ironic, but there you go. But yeah, so hit me up on Twitter as you chill, send me an email as you chill@gmail.com. I'm going to drink my brew, and I shall catch you in a later video.